Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you a question that will expose more truth about who you are than any resume, any degree, or any social media highlight ever could. How bad do you want it? Not how much you talk about it, not how much you daydream about it, but how much you're willing to bleed, sacrifice, and claw your way toward it when everything in you screams to quit. Because here's the truth. The world doesn't care about your potential. The world rewards results. You either stay hungry or you stay broke. There is no middle ground. Every day, I see people sitting on a gold mine of untapped potential, convincing themselves that someday they'll use it. Someday they'll start the business, write the book, fix the marriage, get in shape. But let me tell you something. Someday is a disease, and it's terminal. Because every time you postpone what matters, your brain learns that mediocrity is acceptable. Neurology, that's how habits of failure are built. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision-making, discipline, and goal setting, weakens when you repeatedly choose comfort over challenge. You are literally rewiring your brain for weakness. That's why most people stay stuck. They build neural pathways of hesitation, avoidance, and procrastination, and then wonder why success feels impossible. But it's not impossible, it's just unfamiliar. The truth is, hunger, real hunger, is not a motivational quote. It's biology. It's the evolutionary engine that drove our ancestors to survive famine, to fight predators, to build civilization itself. Hunger keeps you alive. But when your life becomes too comfortable, when everything you need is one click away, that primal fire begins to die. And when it dies, so does your drive. That's why I tell people comfort is the enemy of greatness. The more you chase comfort, the more you betray the very mechanisms that make you grow. Think about it. When your brain is under stress, when your back is against the wall, when you're forced to adapt, your neurons fire faster. Your brain literally strengthens under pressure. But when you coast, you deteriorate. Let's talk science for a second. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself, is triggered by challenge, not by ease. It's the struggle that upgrades your operating system. That means every time you step outside your comfort zone, you're not just building resilience, you're biologically transforming into a sharper, stronger, more capable version of yourself. But every time you choose to take it easy, your brain learns to associate laziness with safety. And the cruel part, the brain doesn't care about your dreams. It only cares about your survival. It's programmed to conserve energy, not to make you successful. So when you feel like quitting, when you tell yourself, I'm tired, I'll do it tomorrow, it's not the right time. That's not the real you speaking. That's your primitive brain trying to keep you alive by keeping you average. But here's what separates the greats from everyone else. They understand that success requires deliberate suffering. They embrace discomfort as their teacher because they know that the pain of discipline weighs ounces, while the pain of regret weighs tons. I remember studying the neural patterns of elite performers, athletes, surgeons, military leaders. Do you know what they all had in common? Not talent, not luck, not even intelligence. They all had hunger, an obsession so deep it bordered on insanity. Their brains lit up under pressure. Stress didn't paralyze them, it sharpened them. Take Michael Phelps. During training, he visualized every single race thousands of times in his mind. He practiced swimming blindfolded in case his goggles filled with water during the Olympics. And guess what? It happened. In the 2008 Beijing Olympics, his goggles did fill with water, and he still won gold because he had trained for disaster. That's hunger. That's preparation on a neural level. He wasn't hoping for victory, he was programmed for it. Contrast that with the average person who says, I'll start when I feel ready. You'll never feel ready. Readiness is an illusion created by fear. You don't wait for confidence. You build it by doing what scares you again and again until your brain learns that discomfort won't kill you. Let me make this personal. Every one of you in this room is either moving toward growth or decay. There's no such thing as standing still. Your brain, your business, your relationships, they're either evolving or eroding. So when I ask how bad do you want it, I'm not asking about ambition, I'm asking about commitment to discomfort. Because that's where transformation lives. Let me share a story that still gives me chills. Years ago, a young man came to me completely broken. He lost his job, his marriage had collapsed, and he was drowning in debt. He said, I want to turn my life around. I told him, then stop making excuses and start making moves. I gave him a challenge. Wake up at 4:30 every morning, write down your goals, and execute one thing each day that terrifies you. For the first month, he hated it, he fought it. But over time, something shifted. His posture changed, his tone changed, his brain started associating pain with progress. Within 2 years, he built a business worth millions. When I asked him what changed, he said, I stopped negotiating with my weakness. That's what hunger does. It rewires you from the inside out. Now, let's talk about the other side of the coin. What happens when you lose your hunger? When you settle? When you start playing not to lose instead of playing to win? Your brain enters what neuroscientists call cognitive decline. You become reactive instead of proactive. You stop innovating, you stop pushing, you start dying slowly. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And the terrifying thing, it feels normal. Because mediocrity is addictive. Once your brain gets a taste of comfort, it craves it like a drug. You start saying things like, I deserve a break. I've worked hard enough. I'm doing okay. That's the language of decay. And if you don't kill it early, it will kill your future. Let's get brutally honest for a second. Some of you here are broke. Not because you lack opportunity, but because you lack hunger. You've convinced yourself that the system, the government, your parents, or your past are the reasons you can't succeed. But that's a lie. The truth is, you've been negotiating with mediocrity. You've been telling yourself stories to make failure feel comfortable. But let me remind you of something backed by neuroscience. The brain does not differentiate between emotional pain and physical pain, which means that every time you break a promise to yourself, every time you say you'll do something and you don't, your brain registers it as injury. You're literally damaging your self-trust. And self-trust is the foundation of success. You can't build an empire on self-doubt. You can't lead anyone until you can lead yourself. And leadership begins with discipline, the kind that doesn't care how you feel. Because discipline isn't about motivation. It's about doing what needs to be done, even when you don't want to do it, especially when you don't want to do it. I've spent decades studying performance psychology, and I can tell you, the highest achievers all operate from one unshakable principle. They refuse to go to bed with their hunger unfulfilled. They wake up hungry, they go to sleep hungry. Because they know the second they lose that fire, they become prey. You see, in nature, the lion that stops hunting doesn't get to retire, it dies. The gazelle that gets comfortable grazing gets eaten. Hunger is survival, and in the human world, it's no different. You stop chasing excellence, you start decaying into irrelevance. And here's where people misunderstand success. They think once you've made it, you can relax. No, that's when you should be even hungrier. Because success is not permanent, hunger is. The moment you lose it, the game is over. I once met a billionaire who still woke up before sunrise, took cold showers, and worked 16-hour days, not because he had to, but because he refused to go soft. I asked him why, and he said something I'll never forget. The moment you start thinking you're safe, you're already dying. That's the truth right there. Safety is a trap, comfort is a coffin, and most people are burying themselves alive in it. So the real question today isn't can you succeed, it's do you want it bad enough to pay the price? Because make no mistake, there's always a price. Every dream demands a sacrifice. You either pay the price of discipline today or the price of regret tomorrow. But you will pay. And regret is far more expensive. It collects interest for the rest of your life. Now let's take a look at what's happening neurologically when you make that decision to push or to quit. When you push through exhaustion, discomfort, or fear, your brain releases dopamine. Not the same kind you get from scrolling your phone or chasing likes, but the deep dopamine of achievement. It's the chemical of progress, of purpose. It reinforces the neural pathway that says, I'm capable, I can do hard things. That's the biological signature of hunger. It's not just emotion, it's neurochemistry. But when you quit, your brain also releases dopamine, the cheap kind, the kind that numbs rather than fulfills, the kind that comes from junk food, gossip, distractions, and fake validation. And your brain learns to chase that counterfeit reward instead of the real one. That's why mediocrity feels comfortable. It's a biochemical addiction to short-term pleasure. So if you want to change your life, you have to rewire your reward system. You must teach your brain that progress, not comfort, is pleasure. That pain, not avoidance, is growth. Because once your brain associates effort with reward, you become unstoppable. You start to crave challenge. You start to see obstacles as fuel. You become the kind of person who thrives where others crumble. I worked with a group of trauma survivors once, people who had gone through unimaginable loss, pain, and tragedy. And what fascinated me wasn't just their resilience, but how their brains adapted. MRI scans showed higher activity in regions linked to determination and learning. Their trauma had forced them to evolve. They had literally built new neural highways to survive. And it made me realize something profound. Hunger isn't just a desire, it's a survival instinct. The same fire that pushes someone out of rock bottom is the fire that drives a champion to keep winning after success. It's the refusal to die before you're dead. Look, life doesn't hand out trophies for trying. It rewards those who persist when everything collapses. And if you think success comes from balance, you're mistaken. It comes from obsession, from an unrelenting commitment that borders on madness. That's what staying hungry really means. Every legend you admire was once a nobody who wanted it bad enough to do what others wouldn't. The athlete who trains in the dark when no one's watching. The entrepreneur who works through the night while others sleep. The single mother who builds a future for her kids from nothing. The scientist who fails 1,000 times before a breakthrough. These people weren't born lucky. They were born hungry. And hunger has no expiration date. It doesn't care if you're 18 or 80. It doesn't care where you're from, what you've lost, or what you've been told. Hunger will take you places talent never could. But here's the paradox. Hunger hurts. It's not glamorous. It's lonely, frustrating, and full of rejection. You'll lose friends, you'll face ridicule, and you'll question your sanity. But if you can survive that fire, you'll emerge unrecognizable. Because growth doesn't come from ease, it comes from endurance. There's a concept in neuroscience called neurogenesis, the birth of new brain cells. It happens most intensely when we're learning something difficult, when we're failing and adjusting, which means failure isn't the opposite of success, it's the birthplace of it. Every mistake is a signal that your brain is upgrading. So when you fail, don't collapse, calibrate. Use that feedback as data. Stay hungry enough to keep iterating until you win. I remember working with a young athlete, incredibly talented but lazy. He coasted on his natural ability until competition got tougher. When he started losing, he blamed everything. His coach, his diet, his teammates. I told him, the problem isn't them, the problem is you got full. He looked at me confused. I said, you got satisfied with being good. So you stopped chasing greatness. Months later, something clicked. He changed his training, cut out distractions, and started treating every loss as a lesson instead of a wound. Within a year, he became national champion. I asked him what changed, and he said, I started starving again. That's it. That's the switch. You want a better body? Get hungry for the pain of the gym. You want financial freedom? Get hungry for rejection, risk, and hard work. You want peace of mind? Get hungry enough to face your demons instead of running from them. Hunger is the bridge between desire and discipline. But let's dig even deeper. Why do some people lose hunger after success? Because they confuse achievement with fulfillment. They reach the summit and realize it doesn't feel like they imagined, so they stop climbing. What they don't understand is the purpose of the mountain isn't to stand on top, it's to become the person who can survive the climb. That's what keeps you alive inside. If you want longevity, not your success, but sustained greatness, you must turn hunger into identity. It can't be something you do on good days. It has to be who you are. The kind of hunger that doesn't clock out, doesn't retire, doesn't need applause. It's self-feeding, it's internal. You can lose money, relationships, reputation, but if you never lose hunger, you'll rebuild it all. Because hunger doesn't depend on circumstance. It's forged in adversity. It's when you've been knocked down so many times you stop counting, yet you still rise. There's a phenomenon in behavioral neuroscience called stress adaptation. When exposed to consistent challenge, your brain actually lowers its stress response threshold, meaning you can handle more pain without breaking. That's what high performers are built on. Not comfort, but calibrated chaos. They've trained their nervous systems to operate under fire. So if you feel pressure right now, good. It means your nervous system is evolving. That's where growth lives, right at the edge of what feels unbearable. Because hunger isn't comfortable, it's primal, it's messy. It's the roar inside you that says, I will not die average. You know what mediocrity sounds like? I'm trying. You know what greatness sounds like? I'm doing. The world doesn't pay you for effort, it pays you for execution. Hunger doesn't negotiate, it doesn't overthink, it just acts.
And don't mistake this for blind aggression. Hunger is intelligent, it's strategic, it's guided by purpose. The difference between desperation and hunger is direction. Desperation is panic. Hunger is precision. It's knowing exactly what you want and being ruthless enough to go after it without apology. Now, let's address the mental health side, because I know some of you hear this and think, but isn't all this intensity unhealthy? No. What's unhealthy is drifting through life with no aim, no drive, no identity. Purpose is the most stabilizing force in the human brain. Studies show that people with strong life purpose live longer, have lower cortisol levels, better immune function, and more resilience against depression. Hunger, when channeled properly, heals you. It gives structure to chaos. It pulls you out of apathy. It gives your suffering a reason. Without purpose, pain becomes poison. With purpose, pain becomes power. So if you're going through hell right now, don't just survive, evolve. Don't ask, why me? Ask, what is this trying to build in me? Because every obstacle is a test of your hunger. Life's not punishing you. It's asking, how bad do you want it? And you need to answer with your actions every day, every hour. There's an old story about a warrior who burned his ships after landing on enemy shores, leaving no path for retreat. That's hunger, when the only direction left is forward. You can't keep one foot in safety and expect to conquer your fears. You can't build an empire with one hand and cling to comfort with the other. The universe rewards the committed, not the curious. Ladies and gentlemen, let me be blunt. Most people are broke, not because they lack talent or opportunity, but because they're emotionally soft. They crave validation more than victory. They want the feeling of progress without the cost. But the truth is, if you're not hungry, you're replaceable. Hunger is your edge. And let me tell you something powerful about the brain. The mind forgets comfort, but it remembers hunger. That's why people who've hit rock bottom often rise higher than those who've never struggled. They've tasted desperation. They know the cost of losing. That memory becomes rocket fuel. So maybe your pain, your rejection, your failure, your heartbreak isn't your weakness. Maybe it's your advantage. Maybe it's the forge that's shaping you into someone unstoppable, but only if you use it.